I'm Charlotte, I'm one of the skippers on Bits Afloat, and I will be your host this evening for the 5th week of Made for More. But before we get into this week's programme, we have a quick message from Andy, our beloved Commodore.
So hello and welcome to a Bank Holiday Monday version of Bittens Afloat. Not afloat, or whatever it is we're doing. So normal format this evening. There'll be a little talky bit by someone shortly and some worship, and then we'll have a chance to do our usual discussion groups, cabin clubs later on in the evening on Zoom. Just a quick message for you. We're having a bit of a change up from this week. So rather than doing the daily morning thoughts, we're going to change it and do 2 a week. So we'll have the Monday evenings will stay the same, but we're going to have a Wednesday morning thought that's a quick snappy thing, which is specifically about somebody's walk with Jesus, somebody in their life with their walk with Jesus. And then on Saturday we're just going to have a normal morning thought, as we have been having, to just give someone the freedom to talk about what it is they want to talk about. So a little bit of a change up. Monday evening staying the same. No daily morning thought, but we're going to have a Wednesday thought, which will be about somebody's life with Jesus and their walk, and then a Saturday, a random one on whatever the person chooses. So keep an eye on YouTube and the other places where you see our videos coming up, and carry on engaging. It's really, really good to see you guys still engaging at this stage, and it's a pleasure to be able to carry on doing it with you. So carry on, see what has to be said this evening, and speak to you later in the discussion groups.
Thanks for that, Andy, and welcome back to my living room. Now, for those of you who have been following Made for More, you know we're using the guide from 16.5 ways to upgrade my faith. And before we get on to this week's amazing way of upgrading your faith, we're going to hear from James, one of my fellow skippers, who's going to talk about how he got on with last week's challenge of reading the Bible. Over to you, James.
So Annie talked about the Bible last week, and I have read the Bible cover to cover, and I agree with Annie. It's not the best way necessarily to start. It was actually on Bittens I decided to do that. I started at Genesis, and I got a little bit stuck in Numbers, where there are lots and lots of lists, and it wasn't great reading. But I enjoyed the prophets. I enjoyed the parts of the Bible where Jesus is referred to, and you can spot it. And as you know, knowing about the story of Jesus, you can spot this stuff and go, they're talking about Jesus. And but the people writing it didn't know that that's what they were talking about necessarily. They had this idea and they had this dream and this vision, and they put it out there, and they had no idea, and never did, because they died, hundreds of years before he existed. And that stuff is all great. I love that. And getting into the deeper study as well. My Bible is a study Bible. I've got commentaries, the deeper context. I like that as well. I think it's good to have something readable like the Message. I've got an ESV, which is very difficult to read, but very good at giving, literally what word did they use to describe this. I think it's best to have something that you understand really well. Otherwise, you just switch off. The biggest thing I struggle with the Bible is actually self-discipline. I can't, and this is not just the Bible; it's everything. It's like my morning stretches that I'm supposed to do, exercises that I'm supposed to do. The discipline to go out and have a run once a week, which I think I said I'd do once, and I never have. That's the bit that I struggle with. So I think then the tools like the Bible Project are great, and the apps that you can get which ping at you and say you haven't read your Bible today. I am very, very good at dismissing and saying, I'll do that later. The biggest thing for me is the accountability. It's having other Christians around you who are reading the same thing, and you say to each other, right, next week we're going to do this book, and you make sure you do, because you want to join in the discussion. And so I think that's one of the things that I've missed during lockdown is the small group of me and a couple of other guys who are studying, a book of the Bible, and just that keeping me accountable.
Hello, it's Charlotte again from the video before. This is a picture of me when I'm about 2.5 years old, getting christened in a church in Chester, holding my little sister Rosie. A few months later, we moved to Rowledge and I went to the primary school where we linked up with St James's Church. There, I met Paul, one of our youth workers, and he invited me along to sail on the Norfolk Broads, where I won an award for being the best bilge ever. But I also learned a lot from people who love God about how much God loves me. I am sorry about the photos looking so old. They were taken quite a few years ago. This was when I was about 15 and our youth worker Becca from St James's took us to Solsviva, where, like so many of you, might have met thousands of other Christians that your age who also just wanted to know more about God and worship Him together. This is a picture of me and the other mates in, I think, 2009, the last year I went on the Broads for a while. I don't know why we're all holding a kettle and pointing to it. I have asked other people in that picture, and they also can't remember why. On the journey home from the Broads that year, Gordy, one of the skippers, told me, "Please, Charlotte, never forget what we've taught you here on Bitters Afloat, that our God reigns and Jesus loves you." Gordy, I never did forget that conversation. While at uni, I joined the Christian Union, along with hundreds of other students. Students from all sorts of denominations, Catholics and Baptists and Gospel, and they taught me so much about what it truly means to be a woman of faith. After uni, God led me back to St James's Church and the Norfolk Broads as a youth worker with this bunch of lovely people. In 2015, I moved away from my friends at home to the big city in London, where I ended up moving into a church. God literally provided me with a roof above my head. So this photo is a little bit different. This is a picture I took on a holiday where I was very blessed to go sailing with my dad and my godfather around the Scottish Isles. I included it because I remember sitting on the Sound of Jura, that bit of water, and truly having a moment where I felt at one and total peace with Jesus. Back in London, I moved to a new church, All Saint Peckham, where in an evening service quite like this one, I received an image from God. God clearly commissioning me to work with young people in the city. So I volunteered to help run TAG, the totally awesome God group at All Saints. This is some of the art we drew when we were praying for our city. Apologies for this quite creepy out of focus photo of me. I'm still quite new at making these iMovies, but this is meant to be a photo of me at my new job, working in an inpatient mental health service, where I support young people going through some of the hardest times of their life, by hopefully bringing some of God's love, joy and passion into my work. At this point, you're probably thinking, you do have a super interesting life, Charlotte, but why did you just show us all those out of focus photos? Well, I can tell you, it's because this week we're looking at recording the story, or to be more specific, the story of your relationship with God. Throughout the Old Testament, God told His people, "Do not forget what you have witnessed, but tell your children and your children's children." And this is how we, today, know the stories of things like the 10 plagues, the partings of the Red Sea, and all the years that God's people spent in the wilderness. Because even though they didn't have photos or films, they did remember. They kept retelling it. The Israelites we read about in the book of Exodus could never imagine what life would have been like for us in the 21st century, and that their story would still mean so much to us. But God could, and He knew if we forgot what He had done in the past, we might lose sight of what He could do in the future, or even what He is doing right now in our present. When me and my mum were looking back through all these photos to find them, we were reminded of memories we had forgotten, things we completely lost. My mum had forgotten why she'd chosen me and my sister to be baptised. This is a problem I too have. I often forget so much of what God has done in my life. The images He has sent me, the words of wisdom He has spoken to me through others, the moments where I have felt nothing but His presence. But looking back at these photos and flipping through my prayer journals, I have been amazed, I tell you, by all the life-changing things God has done in my life and those around me by answering prayer. Keeping a record of how God works in our lives is so important because it encourages us to look back at our memories and be reminded of God's continual presence with us, of His never-ending love, of His voice that never stops trying to reach out to connect with our hearts. In your cabin clubs tonight, take this opportunity to share some of the times when God has made memorable moments in your life. Or If you can't think of any, you can ask the leaders. I'm sure they'll have some wonderful stories. And it's time to get your creative thinking hats on and to start thinking about how you can start recording your story of your relationship with God. But before we head off to Cabin Club on Zoom, we're going to have a time of worship now. Some time to focus on our all-powerful, all-loving Father through music at your home. Good night and God bless.